Just a note of caution, this episode contains a discussion of sexual assault. Some listeners may find this content difficult. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual assault, support is available through the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673 or 1-800-656-RAINN.
I was hopeful that this would be a cathartic and resolving process for me. But all it's really made me realize is that being a survivor is a process. It's never really going to be complete. Being a victim is finite. It happened. Okay, now I'm a victim. Now what do you deal with it being a survivor moving forward? It's a lifelong process.
Let's repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
Welcome back to Positive Blatherings, once again brought to you by our good friends over at Salvatore's Pizza. Visit the Bushnell's Basin store, just a foot race from here. You can just walk around the corner and get a slice, and then bring me a slice because I'm starving. You can tell, right? I'm starving. Give me some food. Salvatores.com. Don't ever forget. Salvatore's makes the best pizza in town. All right, so today, this last couple of podcasts that I've been doing have been very author focused, and I love it because they're some of the best people to talk to when you're trying to find out a story. I mean, think about it. These are people that make a living from writing. So, have you seen I've seen this book. Have you seen this book? I'm positive I have this book somewhere in my basement, and it's Firehouse Cooking. Greg Adams, and his friends call him Bob. Yeah. He's my guest today. Welcome.
Hello. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you're up from the Sunshine State, but you're from the Rochester.
I'm born and raised in Rochester. I'm glad you mentioned Salvatore's Pizza. They're the best pie. Actually, their first location was on East Main Street. We stopped there on the way walking home from high school every day.
Nice
slice. Yep.
I'll tell Sam that
Tell Sam. Yeah.
We had a fun time talking about the first location and how he got it started.
Oh yeah,
it's a really cool story.
His cousins, Sam and Ross Chula, good friends of mine. We all grew up together.
You know what? That's Rochester. That's like the perfect Rochester story. It's like we are all 1 degree separation from everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's like every time I come up here, it's like putting on an old sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And it's just comfortable. It seems like my car knows where to go, and I don't even have to there's
sometimes a sweatshirt seems to have a few more holes in it than
right. And on a day like today, it's a little damp.
So we're joking around and stuff like that, but you're first of all, we're going to go back a little bit into your history. So you're like an old school OG self-publisher, and a lot of the authors that I've had on the Blathering are self-published, and we've been talking about what it's like to self-publish a book these days, but you're going back 30 years or so to 33 years but who's counting? But when you had to do so much more to self-publish a book. And I mean, like, physically, you're talking about cutting negatives and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, that's insane.
And the greatest fear was, in those days, without the ability of print on demand, was that you had to hold an inventory. And so to hold an inventory of thousands of books.
It was a gamble.
Right,
because you had to lay out the money to get them printed.
And then you had to worry, and then you had to worry about distribution and sales, and you just wanted to make sure. I was always afraid that I was going to wind up with pallets of books in my garage that were going to go to the recycling bin. Fortunately, that didn't happen.
So were you, like, early on, were you driving around with, like, a shitload of books in your trunk? Like,
like the coal miner's daughter, from one radio station to one TV station to one firehouse at a time. Absolutely. it was about developing a groundswell. This is all before the internet. This was before, everything was either done by fax or, or postal service. So
you're trying to create a buzz for something that you created so
the best thing I did as far as sales and marketing with the book that I could have done while I was writing, I was aware of the fact of how the importance of the business of publishing. And as I was writing, in that fear of thousands of books in my garage rotting and the fear that it wouldn't sell, motivated me to communicate with QVC. So while I was in the writing process, I was trying to develop sales. So I would send out a sample chapter to the buyers at QVC, or I would send a sample chapter, and always along with a box of cookies. I was
Bribery
recipes.
Always helps.
I was tenacious, and but without being bothersome to the individuals, and that really helped me. So I printed the book. My first press run was approximately 18,000 copies, which was a substantial press run. But I had already had a purchase order from QVC. So helps. 6 weeks out of the box, nice. I was already in the red.
So what did it cost? What did it cost to print a book? Like the per unit cost for you?
Oh, and those. Well, when I printed the first edition, I printed locally at Cobra Press. John Green, my old friend, taught me about film stripping. I think my unit cost on that was approximately $8 to $10 a copy. I was selling it. I learned a lot of hard lessons on that. My margins weren't very high. But I learned, and it was about developing more volume. Then I printed in Michigan. Then I printed in Canada. My last edition, I actually wound up printing, I think it was 50,000 copies in Thailand. So in the meantime, I licensed it to Random House and Penguin USA. So I have been involved with the Big Five before as well. And they did their thing with the book as well. But the rights ultimately always reverted back to me. And
one thing and that's a wonderful story. One thing that I'm always fascinated by and I always want to hear from someone who has found success in something that's big, right? Like a book or a movie or a song or something that gets out there, is what was that like sort of definitive moment when you realized it happened? I made it. Like this freaking happened.
Oh, I was driving a tractor trailer for Wegmans while I was writing the book. That was my day job, and I was called into the office, and I had already used up all of my vacation time, all of my sick leave. It was probably early March of 1994. I was called into the office, and I had to make a decision whether or not I wanted to continue to drive a tractor trailer for Wegmans, or, and I quote, sell your little cookbook.
Oh!
So
shame on you, Danny.
It was a dilemma. It was, I put in for time off because I had to go on Good Morning America. So it wasn't really a hard decision to make. I was like, well, I kind of got pushed. Awesome. So it wasn't so much of a decision. I was I think Mike Bargman over at Wegmans kind of just pushed me out the door. And so I had nothing else to do. But
that's cool because that's the it's when they force your hand, right? Like when I was running this studio for 2 years I was still working in radio, and the pandemic came around, and then I kind of was at a crossroads, and I'm like, do I want to they cut my hours, cut my pay in radio, and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere at this station or in this position. Mm-hmm. Do I just walk away and put all my efforts into making this grow, or do I sit here and it was just like, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, I have to do this. And it was just a gentle nudge. Well, it was more like a shove down the stairs, but that kind of thing. And it's kind of cool when they're like, when you got that little bit of sass.
And now you look back, do you have any regrets?
I don't, you know what? I used to. I don't deal in regrets anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a looking back. I'm not going that way. I'm going forward.
Good for you.
But throughout my history, it's taken me a lot of therapy and self, inner work to get past that whole regrets thing, because I used to be big on regrets.
Right.
That was what defined me for the most part. I'd
Right.
always be regretting, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, and back then I used to do this, and now I don't do it anymore, and blah blah blah. And it was just like I must have been a real drag to hang around.
It's very self-defeating
Yeah,
attitude.
yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
So when you
It's always a struggle.
when you got the idea to write this cookbook, like what was that moment like? Where did you get the idea? Were you always cooking and like as a hobbyist?
I went to hotel restaurant management school. I had a very good career in hospitality, actually, internationally, in my youth. Long before I drove a truck for Wegmans. That was when I returned to Rochester. But the idea behind Firehouse Cooking was ultimately I thought I was driving a tractor trailer. I bought my first house. I owned my first house, and in the South Wedge. I was probably 24, 25 years old. I realized that there were some benefits to a home-based business. I wasn't sure what that home-based business exactly would be, but I needed something that I could take a tax deduction on the house and that kind of thing. I looked at, everybody said, find the one thing that you really, you love and that you're comfortable in, and you'll be successful. Do the one thing that you'll be successful. I was like, yeah, appreciate that, but I'm going to hedge the bet a little bit. So with a lot of introspection, I determined what are the three things that I'm good at, but that I also enjoy. And that would be cooking, writing, and marketing. And how am I going to combine those three things? And I thought, well, I'll put a cookbook together, but who's going to buy Bob Adams' favorite recipes or cookbooks? And so I developed a niche. I had an idea about firefighters. I always thought I guess if we were going to say regrets, I am sorry that I never became a firefighter. But
yeah, right.
But those are decisions that are long over, and those regrets have passed.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that I celebrated firefighters, and I thought that it would be a good, an excellent marketing tool. So and all three played into that. So every day I could wake up and, do I want to write today? Do I want to do publicity today? Am I going to do production today? And I never got bored.
And there's something about like the firefighter's kitchen that I don't know where it came from or how, but it's always been kind of in our public consciousness that firefighters all create these great meals, but I don't know where that came from. It's just people know about it.
Well, people know about it. Hopefully Firehouse Cooking helps spread that. What I found is that it's the sense of belonging, because it's an extension of the family. When I see a bunch of guys around a kitchen table in a firehouse, there's a sense of camaraderie, there's a sense of fair play, there's, everything to roughhousing. But and same with it strikes a chord with a lot of people that reminds them of their own families and their youth, or mom bringing home dinner, dad sitting at the table. It strikes that chord, how that familiarity is, and it's something I think that people really long for.
Yeah,
communal meal.
Yeah, and you think about it. So what are they, like 48 hours on, 12 hours off, or something like that?
Yeah.
So you're away from your family for two whole days,
right? And
what's the one thing that we all talk about when we're with our family is family meals and family dinners and stuff like that.
And one thing about the firefighters that are the house chef, if you will, those are the guys you really want to get to know, because they know all the secrets and they know everything, because it's, again, like they're in the kitchen, so they know all the stuff that's going on in the firehouse and just have a different insight into things. It's kind of.
And did you hang out with a certain firehouse and kind of pick their brains, or?
No, actually, yes. I mean, yes. And the guy on the cover actually was a rookie and firefighter in the city of Rochester and is now a deputy chief. So,
does he have a big framed version of this on his wall? He's got it.
I gave one to his daughter.
Nice.
His teenage daughter had one years ago. I don't know if it's still around, but it was a marketing thing. Yeah, he's a great guy. as far as I hung around with firefighters across the nation. I was invited into fire stations, whether volunteer, career, LAX, from LAX to, Batavia. So I was lucky to be involved and welcomed, actually.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to cook and sleep with these guys. And when I was on tour and pushing the book and doing what I needed to do, if I needed to take a shower, I could always pull into a fire station. So I was a little lucky that way, too.
That's pretty cool.
I was welcomed into the family.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Yeah. So do you have a favorite recipe in this? Can you pick one?
A lot of favorite recipes in there. Could I pick one? I would pick the simplest one, probably a broccoli and peanut salad. It goes together really well.
Broccoli and peanut salad.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a good one. It's sweet and savory and it's, healthy. And
would you use honey roasted peanuts?
You could use honey roasted peanuts. I've actually used sunflower seeds too. So yeah.
Oh, I love sunflower seeds.
So you can substitute
in anything.
But anyway. But I am proud of it.
That's really cool, and I'm glad for your success. And I'm always amazed. So I grew up in South Florida, moved up here for good in 2007, but I first moved here in 2001. So I have 25 years of history in the area, and I've always been amazed. I'm always learning something really amazing about this area. So many things pass through here, originate here. Like growing up, I was a big Foreigner fan. Lou Gramm is from Rochester. Right. It's like there's so many famous, Metallica. They recorded their first album in Rochester. Right. I mean, there's a lot of weird connections to Rochester that I learn of every day. And so when you brought this book out, I'm like, I recognize that cover. I know this. I've seen this. I'm sure my mom has this or I have this in my house. So I would. It's another Rochester. It's just amazing to me. Yeah. These Rochester
connections.
Rochester
thing. You should have been around when the Playpen North was around.
I've heard stories about that place. I've heard there's a lot of different clubs and things that I've heard of.
A lot
that I was
of bands got their start there.
I wish I could have been here in the 90s or something like that when I was just in my early 20s. But so you're after the cookbook. Where did your writing go from the cookbook?
Oh, then I did basically what I did then, because I was a niche writer. I became a niche writer, cookbooks and marketing cookbooks. So I did some ghostwriting. I wrote for the NFL, put out the NFL Family Cookbook, as well as the.
Oh, nice.
But my name's not on it, so. I don't really want to take too much credit for that. I did some work with NASCAR and All Pro Recipes and a number of. Yeah. I even did one for ostrich meat. The Ostrich Meat Association hired me to write their cookbook. So it was a good niche for its time, for me and its time. I ultimately wound up falling in love, moving to Florida, developing a relationship. That's where and now. Had an opportunity to write a new book.
Right. And that's what we're talking about today. Your new book that's coming out in August
15th.
August 15th, Strong Survivor. And this is not a cookbook. This is a nonfiction story, a memoir about something that you went through. And strong is a very key word in this title.
It is.
Right? Strong victim, strong survivor. And why don't you tell me why that is?
Well, in 2015, I was sexually assaulted by Dr. Gareth Warren at the University of Rochester here locally. And then 2 weeks later, he showed up at my home and sexually assaulted me again. The book is definitely about the systemic failure and the disappointment that fell upon me when I attempted to report Gareth Warren as a crime. Now, what I say is factual and true because I ultimately did sue Gareth Warren in small claims court and prevailed in city court because it wasn't about the money. It was about proving that I was, being able to say that I was sexually assaulted by this guy. I lived with the shame, the guilt for 11 years. I put up a website in 2018 knowing that I wasn't the first victim and knowing that I was likely not going to be the last, as a sort of sentinel, a lighthouse, if you will. Unfortunately, that lighthouse wasn't heeded or seen by the system, by the university, by the district attorney's office, by the police departments. And now, of course, naturally, but it was there for the next victim to find. And I was approached by his attorney, the new victim's attorney, and I am a non-party to the lawsuit. I expect to be subpoenaed and, deposed and testify.
Yeah.
And but in the process, when I was, I pulled this. When bad things happen to me, I have a tendency to compartmentalize them. I put things into a box, figuratively and literally. So I had all these documentations. I had audio tapes. I had, admissions, and including Gareth Warren's admission. And I kept all that. For some reason, I was compelled to keep this box, whether it was going through a divorce and moving and this and that. I kept that box. And so ultimately, I knew it would be fruitful, if not and beneficial, not just for me, but for any other victims that would come forward. So I looked at the box. I pulled it down off the shelf, and I had to look at this box for a couple of days and discuss it with the new victim's attorney. And I realized there was a book there, and something compelled me. And this was only recently. This was in November, just prior to Thanksgiving. Something compelled me. I couldn't stop. And within a few days, I sat down, started typing. And within about 3 months, I had 120,000 words.
Wow.
Went through the editing process. Fortunately, I have an insight into the publishing industry, so I wasn't overwhelmed by a lot of these things.
Yeah.
But it did give me an opportunity to dust off Island Dog Media a little bit and, utilize some of those ISBN numbers that haven't been used and put a project together, because it was really important to me that the community, the Rochester community, not only read my story, but they're the ones that need to make a decision on what's acceptable in their community or not. And without the facts, without the knowledge, that decision may not be easily made. Because I'm here to say, and I'm still in that lighthouse saying, there's a predator in your midst. And
if it were a female that was sexually assaulted, do you think that it would have been dealt with differently?
I like to think so, but I know that women also have a lot of stigmatism. Things have changed dramatically in the Me Too movement. What I find is, me and other guys now that I've spoken to, because the book is, allows people a certain sense of freedom to speak about, other guys to speak with a sense of freedom. And that's kind of how I wrote the book too.
Yeah.
It's, it's very profane. It's very vulgar. It's kind of like I'm telling my story as if we were sitting in a bar,
right, and
I'm telling you, there's a kitchen table at 3:00 in the morning, and it's pretty much unfiltered. And
these aren't stories that we're used to as a society, that we're used to hearing.
Right.
If you talk about sexual assault, you automatically think it's man on woman.
Right. Or yes,
yeah, usually. I mean,
do.
and in light of the Me Too movement over the last 10 years or whatever it's been, a lot of focus has been put on that in various industries. And who is the USA gymnast, Olympics doctor?
Oh God.
I can't remember his name.
It begins with an N. I can't remember it either. I know exactly who you mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, when that broke, that was a huge deal. And he came down, it took a lot of people to come out to constantly, and really it started with one person being the lighthouse, right, to shine a light on this. Right. And then more people started coming out and right.
So actually, yeah, it takes a certain sense of bravery, courage, if you will.
Yeah.
Maybe naivety and stupidity to go forward and come forward with a statement because
that's not a small organization to go up against. So when you bring a lawsuit like this, is the lawsuit against the doctor, or is the lawsuit against the hospital, or how does that work?
Oh, my lawsuit, I only litigated against the doctor.
Okay.
I didn't. When I sued the University of I didn't never sue the University of Rochester. I had no. I was a. I want to make sure I say this right. I was already I had already been intimidated and discredited by the University of Rochester in a previous episode. That's why I was so vulnerable to Gareth Warren, was because I suffered dramatically from PTSD. In addition to the sexual assault, several years before, I actually woke up on an operating table at the University of Rochester, and there is an ICD-10 code now for it's called the phenomenon. It's called anesthesia awareness.
Oh yeah.
And I worked desperately to make sure and push that through as a layperson, with working with the American Society of Anesthesiologists and CRNAs. I did everything from speaking to the CDC in Washington to the National Conference of CRNAs in Vegas, whatever it took to push this ICD-10 code through, because ultimately the University of Rochester failed me in that process. I woke up on the operating table and there were protocols in place. It is a JCO Sentinel event. Doesn't matter. I was still misdiagnosed. And I was medically brain damaged, for lack of a better term. And that's the best way I can describe it. And ultimately suffered profound PTSD. And it's, everything that goes with depression, anxiety. And it was a struggle for me. But I think Gareth Warren was aware of that. And I think that vulnerability is what made me particularly susceptible to a sexual assault. By just whether or not, that's how I have to reconcile it. Yeah. And it's about, that's what makes what Gareth did and the university did so abysmal, is that it's the preying on the most vulnerable and the most likely to be believed. I mean, I'm a guy, I got PTSD. Who's going to believe me? I went to your urologist and oh yeah, and he sexually assaulted. Who's going to, oh, well, he's kind of crazy. He's got PTSD. Who knows what's going on in his mind? I actually had a hard time with it myself, because I didn't know whether or not I was what was happening to me at the time was believable in my own mind. Is this reality? Is this, it seems too far-fetched. His admission, getting his admission on tape was pretty important and very, instrumental in being believed and being, giving me some sort of credibility, because even those that were the closest to me didn't believe until they heard the audio tape of him, admitting to ejaculating in my eye.
Oh, jeez.
My partner, my best friends, and they, and you'll read about it in the book. It's all detailed in the book. It was difficult for people to accept that this could be a reality, that this could be possible. I mean, it's the kind of thing you hear about, at a university, and there's a coach who's doing, preying on his students, but apparently it's not uncommon, and it's wildly underreported, and I can understand why.
What was your first step to blowing the whistle on this?
I reported him to OPMC, the Office of Professional Medical Misconduct in New York State. I did that within approximately 10 days of the assault, pretty quickly. I needed to do something to recognize, and that was on advice of other people and doctors and stuff that I spoke with. You need to really report this guy. This is, all kinds of mischief you can get into with a prescription pad.
And did they take you seriously?
Did OPMC? Oh, yeah. Yes, because I had that instrumental. If I didn't have that tape, no. If I didn't have his admission on tape, saying,
And what was his response when the admission of the tape?
From what I understand, he lied to the investigators and told them that he had never been to my home. Clearly, The tape refuted that because he says in the tape that the next time I come to your house, I promise to use better aim and not ejaculate in your eye.
Oh, jeez.
However, I will still continue to be, basically says that, he'll continue to be my doctor and we can pursue a clandestine relationship and a medical relationship simultaneously. So, and the Office of Professional Misconduct took that very seriously and ultimately, started an investigation. Unfortunately, the Brighton Police Department, Rochester Police Department didn't see the tape or me in the same light. I was told at one point that this was just a cat fight between a couple of guys. It was completely dismissed. I was dismissed, but I continued the fight and ultimately reported him to the New York State Police. They did their own investigation. Again, the system failed me and failed the community. The district attorney, Mary Randall, became involved with how do I want to put it? Professional misconduct, if you will. She actually, and you can hear the tapes, you can hear it's in the book. She actually communicated while I was considered a very credible and very, and certainly a victim. I was refused the ability to file a police report in the town of Brighton and at the city of Rochester. They had both communicated. Apparently, Mary Randall communicated with both of these institutions and let them know that I was not to be allowed to file a police report. Fortunately, her influence didn't go all the way to the state level.
What was her basis for that?
That's a good question. Mary Randall's motivations would be totally her own. I have some, thoughts on it. I know that she was suffering from breast cancer. And that she was getting medical treatment at the University of Rochester. I know that she was very close friends with Deidre Flynn, who is, in corporate counsel at the University of Rochester. It's a small town. The university's the largest employer, the largest taxpayer. So when I spoke to Mary Randall, she was going to get back in touch to me to call, you're a victim. But apparently she, instead of, she communicated with the various different departments to preclude me from filing anything. And everybody hoped that I would just go away. But I didn't. And I'm still here. And 11 years later, there's another victim. So I consider anybody that was a part of that complicit in the new crime.
Mm. And you think that there's probably more than one other victim? There's probably
for sure. There were victims. I'm sure that, yes, I wouldn't be, yes, this is behavior that would be, I wouldn't be surprised if there were victims prior to me. And if there were other victims in between me and the most current victim. And if he's allowed to, I think that will continue on. That's my opinions. These are, and I should say that, yeah. I'm not a therapist. I'm not anybody that can make assumptions. I'm just a victim that, say, hey, this is, I recognize a bad dude when I see one.
And what advice would you give someone who may be listening to this or watching this and
another guy that's sexually assaulted and stuff? Therapy. Take time for yourself a minute. Take a deep breath. Think about the consequences. I certainly, if I was assaulted by a doctor, I would certainly not report it to public safety or, the patient relations department at the University of Rochester. I would go directly to OPMC. I would try and have as much evidence as possible.
Does it basically just become like a his word against your word type of thing?
Exactly. It could be yes. It could have, yes, exactly. His word against my word, and that's why the tape was so instrumental. Do I think OPMC would have ultimately have sanctioned him because without the tape? No. I don't. Without his admission, no. I honestly, yeah. There are very few prosecutions, if you will, through OPMC on this behavior. I think in the last 20 years, there's only been 1,300 doctors that have been publicly sanctioned
Only.
in New York. Yeah, it's like a very minimal amount.
I guess when you think about the total population of doctors, but I
in
think
New York
like
State, the
I feel
total
like
population of doctors in New York State, and whether or not, and it's not just sexual assault. I mean, I'm referring to
overall
misconduct.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem, it's not very, So I actually should be happy, I suppose, or proud that he was sanctioned and publicly reprimanded. Patty Singer did an article in the DNC back in 2016 afterwards. And like I said, and after that article, I wound up taking him to small claims court. And small claim, he didn't show up in small claims court. There was some kind of, bad actors in small claims court with the University of Rochester. And I was within hours, the administrative law judge, Johnson, she actually forced a trial de novo because of the inappropriate behavior of the...
And what is that?
A trial de novo is it's Latin. It means new trial, which means that instead of it going and being heard in small claims court, it then went to city court, which then brings in a transcript, and it's a more
bigger level,
more profound. There's an actual judge, not an arbitrator, that kind of thing. Witnesses, that, et cetera, et cetera. Still a perfunctory, a shortened version of a full trial. And that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to get into tort law with the University of Rochester. I just wanted to be able to prove that what he did was sexually assault me. The judge saw that, clearly recognized that he had breached his fiduciary responsibility to me by sexually assaulting me. And I was awarded $5,000, but that's not what I was after. I was obviously going for the admission. Anyway, character-wise, one of the things that pops into my head while I was doing the investigation, doing some preliminary investigation, I should know a little bit about Gareth Warren, right? So I'm like, after the OPMC thing was concluded, I logged into the Strong Hospital website and I pulled up his CV, his resume, and was going through his resume, and I noticed that he was a member of the American Board of Urologists. And I was like, I wonder if the American Board of Urologists I bet they do have their own ethical guidelines and standards about being a member of the association. So I contacted them, let them know, spoke with Lindsay Franklin and executive offices, let her know what had happened to me, that New York State had sanctioned Gareth Warren. And asked if they had their own guidelines. Of course, she confirmed that they did. They would likely, suspend him from the association for at least the term that he was a doctor or sanctioned by New York State. A week later, I get a call back from Lindsay saying that they were planning on sanctioning him, but they couldn't because he'd never been board certified. He lied on his CV.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
So I don't know who's in their human resources department, but had they properly vetted him, I might likely have never even met Gareth Warren.
Oh, that's a bigger...
That's just something But that too is in the book, and I hope that the readers, and that's really what I wrote the book for. I want the readers, I want people in the community to read the book. It's not going to win a Pulitzer. It's not, it's a good book. It's a quick read. But I want people in the book to or in the community to raise their voices and see if this is acceptable for them or not, to ask questions. That's why I use names. Feel free, read the book, call up the University of Rochester and ask them what they're doing. Call up the district attorney's office. What are they doing? I was trying to find statistics on adult male sexual assault survivors. How many of those cases have been prosecuted in Monroe County? How many of them have been reported? And then how many of them have gone to prosecution? And then how many of them have gotten convictions? And I speaking with the Restore program, I had advocate at the Restore program, and in her 23 or 25 years, and with Restore here locally. She says she thinks that it's probably about 2 to 5%, if she recalls. Maybe there's a handful of prosecutions, and usually they're involved with sexual or with domestic violence. And I should say that too. I understand that a lot. I'm still learning the statistics. I'm still learning what it means to be a survivor and what these, and what the differences between the male experience and the female experience, and statistically how many guys actually do have the courage to come forward. I'm still learning.
Yeah, and it seems like it's one of those things where I think guys, survivors in general have trouble coming forward just because of the stigma, like you said, that is thrust upon them.
Well, everybody's going to think you're a fag.
Everybody's
going. I'm telling you, I'm not going. I don't know what your situation is. I've had this conversation with police cops. If you go to your doctor and you're a urologist and you have a problem and the guy sexually assaults you, you have a wife, you have 3 kids, you have a career. Are you even going to report it? Are you going to question your masculinity? Are you going to say something to your wife who may say, you know what, maybe I misread you? And there's a lot of fear that guys have to deal with. I mean, and going forward.
I don't know. That's a really difficult situation to be in. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what must be going through your mind when you're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? What do I do?
Right. So that's why I had no idea either. The first people I reached out to some friends initially, got some advice, and then it was going to OPMC. I didn't know if I was going to report him to the police or not. It took me probably about 6 weeks before I first, 3 to 6 weeks before I went to the police.
And did they bring it? Did they say, well, how come you waited so long?
No. They didn't, actually. Mike Desane at the Brighton Police Department was the first person I tried to speak with about it. And he seemed to, it seemed to be unbelievable to him. I was discounted. It was something that it made him uncomfortable to hear about it.
Sure.
And I don't think he had the training or the understanding on how to deal with an adult male sexual assault victim and how to pursue it. And I think that he was much more, and he was certainly swayed by Mary Randall. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I think he would have been, he was more, it was about self-protection, I think, at that point. I think that he had other motivations in his mind other than having to take a report from a gay guy being sexually assaulted by his doctor.
And I think there's got to be a lack of that kind of training just overall.
Right. Yes.
There may be training for the other way around for female survivors of sexual assault.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
It's a dynamic I have little experience with personally, but I would hope so. But I don't know if that's true either. I really don't. Sexual assault is the most underreported crime, male or female, of all crimes. So, and that says something. It's the lack of belief, it's like re-victimizing yourself. When you go in and report somebody, you're reliving it. Yeah. And being defensive. Well, why didn't I beat him up? Why didn't I kick him in the nuts? Why didn't I stab him? Now I'm living now it would have turned into a crime scene. My home, it's one thing, a bloody crime scene, I should say. And from what I understand, statistically, a lot of these adult male sexual assaults are actually perpetrated by women. So there's that, aspect of it too. So I mean, I'm still learning. Yeah. All I can tell you, really, Scott, is that I'm still learning.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even. This is like
that's why people need to read the book. There's not a lot out there. It's a first person account, male first person account of sexual assault and how the system failed them. And as you read the book, you'll see that it's one thing folds into another. And I was hopeful that this would be a cathartic and resolving process for me. But all it's really made me realize is that being a survivor is a process. It's never really going to be complete. Being a victim is finite. It happened. Okay, now I'm a victim. Now what do you deal with it being a survivor moving forward? It's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
I don't think, and some of us, and there's no guarantees that I still might not fail. I might fail. I think of Virginia Giuffre, Jeffrey Epstein's. You would think that, she's a woman who has survived. She, came public. She wrote a book, did very well. Settlement from, the Prince of England, one of the Ducos, and she still clearly had demons, and it was never satisfactory. And she probably, it's always a road, and I don't know how it's all going to end for me.
What are your hopes for this book?
The hopes for the book is that it break even.
Besides the financial hopes.
And like I said, that the goal for the book is that it be read and that it be talked about. That's really what I want people to do, is talk about the subject matter. Open people up, feel a little bit more comfortable about, their own experiences and their own, life's experience. One thing, I was doing as an example. I got to get a picture done for the dust jacket. Right? So a buddy of mine down in Florida, he hooks me up with a photographer. I don't know. Let's meet. I met him at a bar. We're having a couple of beers. I'm telling him about the subject matter of the book, what I need. I never ultimately hired the guy. He wound up, we had a beer. I bought him a beer and he left, and I went outside and I was having a beer and finishing my smoke. And the bartender, who had been overhearing the conversation, came out. Oh, and he's telling me, and Trey's a good photographer, and that's how he opened up the conversation. And okay, great. And before you knew it, within a very short period of time, he was talking about the book. And he goes, so when I was 11, there was a guy on the street. And I don't know if it's the same thing because it's just a couple of kids. I don't think it's the same thing. And I realized it was like, and I said to him, I was like, yeah, but you're 36 now. Clearly.
Yeah.
It was an assault. Otherwise,
right.
It's still a demon for you.
Right.
25, 30 years later, you're still processing and coming out here to talk to me about it. And I've learned that I've had friends that have now read the book. I've known for 35, 40 years. And I asked them to do some proofreading type things just to get an idea. And then I realized after that conversation, I got in touch with a couple of guys and I was like, I hope I didn't trigger you. This is a conversation we've never had. No, I know a lot about you. And one of the individuals says, well, let me tell you a story. I had an older cousin. And it opened up a dialogue between us that we'd never had before.
Yeah.
And I think it was cathartic for my buddy and for me. And it made me definitely realize that there's so many stories out there, whether or not you're in the military, whether or not it was an uncle, whether it's the Boy Scouts or the priests or whatever it is. There's all kinds of dynamics. Guy in college, and I really feel sorry for all these guys. And I just hope that it gives, I just want people to know they're not alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of people feel like they're to blame somehow for this. It's their fault.
Oh, of course.
And then
I did. Absolutely. What did I do wrong? Why did Gareth Warren pick me? What is it? What was it? Do I have pixie dust or something that I was throwing at him? I have no idea. Why is this guy thinking that, this is appropriate? Why is he going to throw his whole life down the toilet? Because I've only known the guy for 5 minutes. I never met him before. I was just, I was referred to him as a specialist, and he got right into this. And I don't know what I did to seem, did I? I don't know. I don't think I did. But apparently, I don't think he heard me. He would make comments, and he seemed to think that everything was a pickup line. It was like it was the strangest experience. And that's why with PTSD and everything else, I'm like, this is unbelievable. What's going on here? Am I in an exam room or am I in the back room of a gay bar?
Nah.
It was just a difficult to navigate. I'm still processing it, clearly.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that you're going to process for the rest of your life.
Right.
Right. And hopefully as you get older and as you move through things, it becomes less of a daily occurrence, and there's things that you can move on from, but it's always there. It's
Yeah.
always there.
It's
And I've spoken to my share of intimate partner violence survivors, domestic violence survivors. We've recorded a couple of books here, the memoirs about that survivors of those, in their marriage.
Yeah.
And the stories that I've heard in this studio are unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. And if anyone can make it through those and become and be a productive member of society and make it through, I mean, that's a win in and of itself. But like you, they decided to write a book.
Yeah.
They decided to get the story out there, because if one person hears the story, reads the story, learns about that, and can make a difference by
All right.
speaking out or whatever,
Well, I'm hopeful that people are going to, not on that side of the coin, absolutely, on an interpersonal level, how it affects you. But people can now utilize this book and pick it up and contact the DA's office, contact Strong, like I said earlier, and hold people accountable. It's not it's not a mission of one. I'm not on a mission to hold. It's up to the community. I don't live here anymore. It's up to you people. You live here. Do you want your son to go and see Dr. Gareth Warren and get an exam?
No.
Do you want your grandfather or the autistic kid down the street or the Vietnam vet, to go in? Because these are the individuals that, are his prey. He's, and those that, may or may not have credibility, those that may or may not have, psychological issues, whatever it is. This is the kind of patient that Gareth Warren looks for. And what's always boggled my mind, and I never gave a shit whether or not he was, gay or straight, in the closet, out of the closet, whatever it is, it was that he was a doctor.
Yeah.
Because like any other self-respecting American man who hates his wife, who wants to cheat on his wife, wants to do this, go on Craigslist, go on Grindr, find a piece, whatever you want to do. Just don't prey on your patients, because it was available. But that was never good. That's not what Gareth Warren's MO was to me. To me, his MO is, it's about the power, and it's about power, and there's a certain power dynamic between a doctor and a patient, and certainly a level of trust that a patient goes to and expects from their physician. So to, usurp that trust in a sexual manner and sexualize that trust is very defeating. I don't know.
Well, I thank you for for coming on to my podcast and telling your story. And the book is coming out August 15th, you said?
August 15th. Paperback, hardcover, EPUB, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And of course, through my books, you can pre-order. You can do pre-order sales through thestrongsurvivor.com.
All right.
And through that, and of course, if you purchase a copy, I am going to be making some changes to the members site. I do have all these audio tapes behind a paywall, currently, and I'm going to be changing the pricing on the paywall so that when you buy a copy of the book, you can read the chapter about Gareth Warren, sexually assaulting me, and that I recorded him and then took this tape to OPMC. But now you have an opportunity to hear it for the actual tape for yourself. If I make a reference to Mary Randall or Mike Desane at the Brighton Police Department, I can do so because, again, that conversation was on tape. And when he characterized, and when Mike Desane says, well, what happened to you was not a crime, but because I questioned him once. I said, Mike, I can't believe this. If I can't file a report. Mary Randall says I'm credible. Mary Randall says I'm a victim. You spoke with Mary Randall, the district attorney, and she told you not to allow me to file a police report. If I called you up and told you a ham sandwich ran into my mailbox, you'd send a cop car and file a police report, right? And he says, yes, I would, because that's a crime. But what happened to you isn't a crime. You let him in your home. You consented. You went to it was merely a physical exam. You don't know. Clearly, apparently he was insulting my intelligence that I don't know the difference between a physical exam and a sexual assault.
Wow.
So I think that's a real benefit for people. There's hundreds of hours of tapes, PDF files. I made the reference to the OPMC. There's OPMC tapes, district attorney tapes, whatever. I documented everything because of my PTSD and the paranoia that was imposed on me by Strong previous to the assault. I knew to document and tape, because if it was going to be my word against somebody else's word, I wanted the words to be heard. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I wish you the best.
Thank you for having
bringing
me.
this book, and if you're welcome to come in and make it an audiobook if you want one day. If you want to come back to visit.
I'd love that. I like that opportunity.
Yeah. I recommend that you pick up this book when it's out and visit the website. And definitely, if you're interested in going down the rabbit hole of all the evidence that he has, I definitely want to hear it, because this is the kind of story that needs to be told. And I applaud you for having the courage to do it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining me. Thanks for tuning in to Positive Blatherings. We'll catch you next time.
Cars.com